Welcome. I'm Michael Bickert. Thanks for joining me today as we explore another concept designed to assist you with improving your management style and growing your business. Today, I want to talk about doing the opposite. While they are zigging, you should zag. While everyone else is zigging, you should zag. And before we get started, I always like to remind people to grab a notepad and a pen so that you can jot down a note. Pause the video right now to do so, and then pause the video anytime throughout if you're inspired to take something down that you can implement in your business today. And that's the commitment I want you, every time you watch one of these videos, I want you to make a commitment to take away something that you will implement in your business today. And it doesn't have to be something related to the video. Often when I watch somebody on YouTube who's stimulating my brain to try to improve in some way, I'll take away something that's completely unrelated. My mind may wander and I may be reminded of something. Just maybe it's the way somebody says something, it reminds me of something else. That's the time. Pause that video, take a note, and then commit to implementing something in your business today. All right. While everyone else is zigging, you should zag. Zag when everyone else is zigging. Opposite. You should do the opposite. Is there merit in that? I was thinking about this the other day, and if I'm being honest with myself, I think it's a fair criticism that people may have of me that I seem to be contrarian in nature. Throughout my life, I've always sort of learned the hard way and sort of had a problem maybe with authority and been somewhat rebellious. And that, although that was my personality, and I'm not exactly sure where that comes from or, if it's just inherent in who I am, it's more likely that there were some surrounding environmental factors that influenced me. However, despite the fact that it's just natural to me, I think that it's something I would advise others to do. And that's what I wanted to discuss today and see whether or not you think that you are being too agreeable too often and maybe conforming too often and following the crowd. When I was young, I was really a highly competitive swimmer, swimming at an elite level. And I remember even then, I didn't want to follow my coach's advice if she was pushing me too hard. So if she would say, swim faster, I would intentionally swim slower just to be obstinate. And also throughout my life, maybe if you look at a musician or an artist, some kind of band or a singer that I liked, if other people if this person became very popular and commercially successful, I would sort of shy away and I would no longer listen to that music. Even right now, when I turn on Netflix and it rates, the top 10 in the country today, I will avoid watching any of those. And I'll wait until maybe some time where it's in a suggested and another way that it comes up and it's no longer popular. I don't want to do things that are popular for some reason, and I don't like doing things at least solely because they're popular. And I think that concept you can relate to when you think about, we use pejoratives to describe conformity. We talk about sheeple and mob mentality. There are expressions like monkey see, monkey do, and who can't recall an incident when they were younger that their parents said to them, if Tommy jumped off a bridge, would you jump off a bridge? And there was wisdom in that statement, and following what other people do and conforming in and of itself is not good rationale to do something. And I don't advise you to be obstinate just for the sake of being contrarian. But I want you to explore the idea of why it may make sense very often to do the opposite of what people are doing, or at least not to do what people are doing. I'm reminded of that episode of Seinfeld where George Costanza is resolved to do the opposite of whatever his instincts tell him. And throughout the episode, he just does the opposite, and he's all of a sudden very, very successful. That's not what I'm suggesting that you should do. In fact, I would advise you to do the opposite of that. I'm advising you to not do the opposite of what your instincts are telling you to do. You should do exactly what your instincts are telling you to do, and your logic. And I want you to think for yourself is the key here. I don't want you to follow what the crowd is doing for the crowd's sake. You don't want to just jump on the bandwagon. You have to ask yourself and think for yourself and reason things out, explore. Just hit the pause button, back up a little bit and ask yourself if what is going on in a particular situation meets or is congruent with your values and with your understanding of how things work and should work. And will you get predictable outcomes doing what everyone else is doing? In the context of the business, if you do what everyone else is doing, you're going to have lots of competition. You're not going to differentiate yourself. You're not going to stand out as a leader and having a unique product. So certainly when you're thinking of your business, your product, and your customer experience, you don't want to do what everyone else is doing. You want to zig while everyone else is zagging. Offer something unique in the marketplace. And think about yourself. What it is that is unique about you. I always recommend that you try to do those things which you're good at. Focus on your strengths, not your weaknesses. And when you think of all the variety of things that make up you as an entrepreneur, as a person, or if you think of your team and what the uniqueness of your team, the composite of all of you together, how are you unique? And if you focused on doing those things that you're very strong and not your weaknesses, you would have a unique recipe. Your team, yourself, you represent something very different from what else is out there. And it's that uniqueness that will have an appeal in the market. Even those things which are your foibles and maybe those things that are sort of your quirks, those can be things that really help you. And ask yourself if there's a way you can leverage those things. If you can leverage those things in order to create a niche market, think of it, yourself as an individual, you're very niche, you're very unique. And if somebody was buying you as a product, we've talked about before where people need to know, like, and trust you in order to buy from you. And you should sell yourself first and foremost, and then sell your company, your brand, that which stands behind the product, and then sell the product and service. So let's get back to it. If you think about it, you're very unique as an individual. If you're selling yourself, you become the brand. You become a major part of what people are buying into. And your uniqueness has drawn many people to you throughout your life. How can you tie that into your business and make it part of your business, make it part of what you do? That's one sort of way to look at this, but I'm really encouraging you to consider whether or not you should conform and do what everyone else is doing. I think that there are psychological underpinnings to this, and there's no shortage of psychological experiments throughout the years that have shown that people are unwilling to dissent, and that it takes a lot of courage to do something different than everyone else. I think there's a Stanford prisoner study. There is this thing where people were asked to follow what the authority was saying, to zap a person behind there was a movie made on that. Sorry if I'm being not very descriptive here, but you've probably seen some of these things. There's an experiment where everyone on an elevator is facing the wrong way, and then another individual gets in. All the others are in on it. And then eventually the guy who's facing the wrong way starts to subtly turn around. And there's a great video, I think it's by Learn Liberty, The Courage to Dissent. I'll put a link in the description to that video. You should watch that because it does take courage. There's probably some evolutionary advantage to conforming. If you think of flock of skittish birds or a herd of gazelle. And if one of them takes off right away and then the rest take off immediately, there's probably good reason for that. Maybe one of them was in tune to a predator approaching, and the others, by conforming and following the herd immediately, had a better chance of survival. And so there may be some good reasons from an evolutionary perspective. However, the way the world operates, and as human beings, we have reason and logic, and we have the ability to think. So I'm asking you to do just that. Ask yourself why you're doing things and make a decision. Think for yourself. Don't do what everyone else is doing. It is often the case that doing the opposite of what everyone else is doing will serve you best. And I think if I haven't convinced you so far, let me just read you from a Bible verse that you're probably familiar with. It is Matthew chapter 7, 13 and 14, the narrow gate. It says, "Enter through the narrow gate, for the gate is wide and the road broad that leads to destruction, and those who enter through it are many. How narrow the gate and constricted the road that leads to life, and those who find it are few." So if that doesn't convince you that there's merit in not following the crowds very often, then certainly nothing I'm going to say will likely convince you. But I thought it was something just in the discussion right now, all that seems to be going on, and there's always, throughout time, throughout history, there's always going to be times where people have to measure their actions against what the masses are doing. And ask yourself, and I'm not telling you again that you should do the opposite always. I'm saying to you that you should think for yourself and not jump on the bandwagon automatically. Ask yourself, what do you believe in? What is precious to you? What is in your best interest? And are you doing the things that lead to that? Begin with the end in mind, and don't just instinctively do what somebody else does. I don't want to talk out of both sides of my mouth here. Sometimes your instincts are right, and sometimes they cause you to immediately do the wrong thing. So I want you to stop, slow down, use what Dr. Stephen Covey calls responsibility, your ability to respond and to choose your response. Unlike an animal who is perhaps relying strictly on instincts, you can have a force acted upon you, and you can then stop, think about it, even if it's for a split second, and determine your reaction to that response. Stick to your plan until the evidence tells you to do something to the contrary. And as you look for ways to continuously improve and add value to your business, ask yourself, are you being true to yourself? Are you being true to your values? Is your business unique in ways that are congruent with what you believe? And or is your business doing things in a particular way because that's the way that you think the market is demanding, just because everyone else is doing it? Now, you may have evidence and data collected from the market to give you every indication that you should be doing things a particular way, and probably stick to that. But simply because that's the way other similar businesses or your competition is doing it is not a valid reason. In fact, that is when I'm saying you should zig when everyone else is zagging, or rather you should zag when everyone else is zigging. You want to look for ways to be unique. All right, that's where we'll leave it for today. Let me know what you think in the comments. Do you disagree with this concept? Is there merit? Can you think of times when you have done the opposite and it's paid off in huge dividends? Let us know. Remember, we got to learn from one another. It's okay to disagree. It's okay to debate and have diversity of thought. Let's help one another, learn from one another, perpetual refinement.